Cabinet Committee Corporate Parenting, which is due to health and safety reasons is being held virtually. The meeting is recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as is practicable following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting from remote locations. Please could everyone ensure that their mobile phones are switched off or onto silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points, and for the record, the agenda can be reviewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point. But I would ask that, with the exception of myself as the chair, at all other times you keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference to ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. If any members and officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen hand at the top right hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to you in the order I receive requests. Please lower your hand once you have finished speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphones unless I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout. Where necessary, they will mute those not being used. I would also ask officers to introduce themselves as and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. And I will now proceed to the agenda business. Thank you very much. Right, bear with me just a second because I've had a message off Mark Shepherd to say he hasn't got a link to the meeting. So could we invite him in, please, Mark?
Yes, Chair, I'll send him a link now.
Thanks. No, he hasn't. Oh, there we are. I've just requested he join anyway. So if we move on to the agenda, apologies for absence, please.
I've had just the Corporate Director for Social Service and Wellbeing, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Councillor Blundell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to point out that I'll have to leave the meeting for another meeting just before 3 o'clock. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any? Oh, sorry, bear with me, Mark.
Apologies, Chair. Apologies for being slightly late, but also just to confirm I'm in the same meeting as Councillor Blundell. We'll need to leave the meeting just before 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, I'll have to leave the meeting at 3:30. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks very much. Councillor Thomas? No others? Just legacy hand? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of personal or prejudicial interest from any members or officers in attendance, please? No. Moving on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes from the 2nd of March 2022. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor David. And I would need another cabinet member, please. Even if you weren't at the meeting, it would need to be another cabinet member to second them.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Who was that? Sorry.
Was I, Reese?
Oh, sorry, Reese. I'm very sorry. You only just flashed up now. Thank you very much. Can I move on to agenda item number 4, an implementation of the foster carer charter? And I am assuming that Steve is going to speak to this, or is it Rhianna? Alex, I do beg your pardon. Laura?
Sorry, Chair. I think the next item I've got is the presentation of in relation to our information advice and assistance service.
That's fine. Thank you very much. I've got the old agenda that was printed for me before it was.
That's okay. So if I can just outline then, it's Laura Kinsey, Head of Children's Social Care in Bridgend. So the next item is a presentation on the performance of our IAA, our Information Advice and Assistance Service, which is located in the Bridgend Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. in town, and Rhianna Granger, who is an interim group manager for IAA and safeguarding, is going to present this to the committee. So I'm going to hand over to Rhianna. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Just if someone could give me the nod when my screen is shared, I'd be grateful.
It's sharing, Rhianna.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, hi everybody, Rhianna Granger, Acting Group Manager for IAA and Safeguarding. So I've just come really to talk to you today about the situation in sort of Q3 and Q4. As I'm sure many of you are acutely aware, the MASH IAA service during Q3 had a number of challenges and performance sort of declined in that service. That was in relation to high levels of sickness within the team, much of which was related to COVID, but not all. And we had a number of permanent social workers leave the service. So performance significantly declined, and a critical incident was called by the corporate director on the 1st of March. That led to gold, silver and bronze command structures being initiated. So we had to change a lot of the way that we were working. I came over to the service sort of February time, and then from March was in the acting group manager role. So we had to make across the board changes to improve how we were meeting our statutory duties. So daily meetings were held under the critical incident. So we considered all of our performance data within those daily meetings. So we were live to all of the issues and outstanding work that needed to be undertaken. We redeployed staff from across children's services because, as I said, we had a lot of social workers leave and we weren't successful in recruiting at that time. We also developed an IAA action plan, and this set out what we needed to change in the short, medium and long term to enable us to come out of that critical incident. So the action plan focused on increased situational awareness, communication with partners and the actual team itself, workforce, practice issues, quality and assurance, how we could change our systems and our processes to enable us to undertake our core duties more successfully. We also, what we call the Innovate Team, commenced on the 21st of March. The Innovate Team is an agency team, so probably best to describe it really as a team within a team. So they have their own management structure, their own head of service, but they were brought in and they sort of sat with us in Ravenscourt because we had a huge backlog of work from the end of 2001 and going into 2022, sorry, 21, 22, and we knew we couldn't allocate that within the team because of the staff shortages. So the Innovate team came in, brought with them a wealth of experience, and that enabled us to take a lot of that work that was on backlog and move it over to them. We also recognised in January that our screening rate, so when a referral comes into the service, we have to screen that. So we need management oversight and decisions made in how that is going to be treated, and that needs to happen within 24 hours. And the service just wasn't meeting that time scale, again because of sickness and COVID and the backlog of work that was taking everybody's time. So we knew we had to increase our workforce and our team management capacity. So as I said, I came in February and then into the acting role in March. We brought in another team manager who is employed as a peripatetic team manager, so sort of floats around and works where that is needed. So she came over to the service. We recruited a number of agency social workers to enable us to meet that screening requirement. And I'm very pleased to say that since that time, month on month, we have made improvements, and we are now meeting our screening responsibilities. We've also looked at enhancing practice to ensure that when a contact is received, we are considering every child within that household, and that's something that wasn't happening, and it meant that our data wasn't a true reflection in terms of the work that was being undertaken, because obviously if you only consider the one child, you think you've got one assessment to undertake, but actually if that child is a part of a sibling group of 4, you've actually got 4 assessments to undertake. So we really drilled down on that and improved our processes to make sure every child in a household was considered when we were screening, allocating and looking at what assessments needed to be undertaken. So when we moved into Q4, a real benchmark for us is that we allocated all of the outstanding care and support assessments. So when I talk about that backlog that we had, we were able to allocate all of that work out, so we didn't have any unallocated care and support assessments. We also strengthened our team management oversight. So what we do now is the team manager sends on a daily basis to all of the social workers a RAG rated sort of list of all their work and what needs to be done and what to prioritise first. So it is quite micromanaging, but it's what has been needed to keep people on task and for them to be really clear about what needs to be undertaken first. We also have a focused work plan. And that incorporates the additional support and redeployment of staff. And so it was at this point, as we moved into Q4, that with all these factors, we were able to really make some improvements and start to steady the ship, so to speak. So just a graph here that is quite simplistic in terms of setting out how our work has increased. So what you see here is the dark blue is our number of contacts that came in through the front door and what was screened same day. So if we move through January, you can see that the team was really not meeting that responsibility, as I talked about, but here you can see the improvement as we've gone through week on week. We're now successfully meeting that benchmark. So in Q4, this just helps to sort of set out really how, oh, sorry, has that disappeared? It's just gone from my screen. Sorry, is it, gosh, God, I love a technical issue. How is that? Is that back for people?
It's back, thank you.
Okay, sorry. It's the joys of working from a laptop. Okay, so in Q4, the service received 1,332 reports. Of that figure, 577 became care and support assessments. So that's 43%. So if we compare that to the quarter before, only 29% went on to care and support assessments. So to explain some of that, we've got some of the issues that we're all very well aware of, the social issues that have come from the COVID pandemic. We've also had increased awareness from the public in terms of what constitutes a concern for a child. We've very sadly, the child deaths that have occurred in Bridgend have really had an impact in terms of members of the public contacting, because I think if they've had concerns about a child in their local area, they might have sort of debated it previously to themselves as to whether to call that in, but I think the media interest and the child deaths has really made people think, actually, I'm not gonna debate this anymore. I am concerned and I am going to call that in. We've also had a change in the law in terms of physical chastisement, so that has created an increase, but also, as I talked about, the additional team management oversight we've had has led to an increase in care and support assessments, and and rightly so, because perhaps it was previously, things should have been a care and support assessment and weren't getting to that point. So this is a combination of these factors and us strengthening our oversight in terms of cases. Okay, so if there's concerns that a child has suffered significant harm or is at risk of suffering significant harm, they've made a direct allegation, then we undertake a strategy meeting, which is a multi-agency meeting to consider those risks and determine whether we meet the criteria for a Section 47 investigation. So that level of work has also increased between Q3 and Q4. So, and as you can see, that the figures of the increase there. And again, some of that is around the law change, our processes of strengthening sibling groups and considering all children within a household, that increased public awareness, meaning more cases coming through the door, an increase in professional curiosity also, which I think we largely attribute to the media and the child deaths in the region. So it does go to show we've been through a period where we've not had sufficient staff, and yet our work has increased at the same time. So we increased our staff capacity by 25%. We made a commitment to the staff that they would have a caseload in the region of 25 if you were a full-time social worker. And we made that commitment because we recognised that morale was really poor, really low. People were leaving. We needed a way to make our staff feel like they were working in a very safe environment with support, and that we wanted to support them to work those cases safely and appropriately. And so we had to recognise that the level of work that they had was too high. So we've made that commitment, and I'm pleased to say that does appear to have had more of a stabilising effect in terms of staff turnover. Obviously, the Innovate team that I spoke about, the agency team, that's had a huge impact, and that contract has been extended by a further 6 months. So that's that's really helpful in enabling us to meet our statutory duties. With the additional team management capacity has also had a positive impact because staff are feeling more supported. They're more confident to manage their cases. We also held weekly supervision with staff, again because we really recognised the difficult period that they had been through and how they were feeling. So we really wanted to be as supportive as possible and provide them with a weekly environment where they could talk through their cases, talk about how they were feeling, and have some of that management oversight and that well-being element as well. We also rolled out mindfulness sessions. We've got some building resilience workshops in the calendar. We had some days where we had therapy dogs to the office. We just tried to do things to really make it a nice environment to be in. And because people have been home working because of the pandemic, I think there were some anxieties as well about being in an office environment. So, we really try to be as supportive as possible. We are also rolling out, and this is across children's services, the Back to Basics training, and that's mandatory for all social workers, including agency social workers, to attend, and that comes from the back of the rapid review that was undertaken in the end of 21. So those sessions are all taking place, and as I said, it's mandatory for workers to attend. So we recognised with the changes that we were making that we needed to undertake quality assurance work. We needed to see that the changes we were implementing were having a positive impact. So we undertook dip sampling on a daily basis initially. We sort of recognised from the QA work we were doing and the dip sampling that there had been an issue in terms of threshold, and we weren't confident that consistency in terms of threshold was apparent. So we made some changes to sort of resolve those issues. And one of those changes is that team managers chair the strategy meetings. So those are the meetings that determine, assess the risk and determine what action needs to be taken. So we felt that actually having less people doing that and of team manager level as opposed to the senior social workers was going to offer some of that consistency. We're still doing that. We do have a process now for seniors to chair those meetings if we have a high level in a day, but our first approach would always be for a team manager to undertake that. We've also had independent social workers undertaking audits, and then we consider the recommendations of those in our action plan. As I said, we strengthened the management oversight in terms of cases, decision making and signing off. And I've talked there about the strat meetings. And then we also, from a QA perspective, have team managers undertaking. There's a programme of monthly audits that need to be undertaken by team managers. So in terms of finances, all of this work and the high level of agency staff that we've got obviously has a detrimental impact in terms of budgets. So because of the Innovate team and those agency social workers, our predicted cost is 1.2 million by the end of the year. So to improve that, we are actively on a daily basis working in terms of recruitment and retention. We've got an international social work recruitment programme fully underway and shortlisting and interview dates being set. We've increased our places on the secondment, so I'll grow our own social workers, and also there is the implementation of the market supplement to try and attract more social workers to certain teams within children's services. We also recognised that we had a high level of complaints, and to improve and get better, we need to look at those complaints and look at any themes coming from that. When I moved over, sort of end of Feb into March, I was dealing with complaints on a daily basis, and some of those complaints had not been dealt with in a timely way. So sort of set about really trying to clear old complaints and deal with any new complaints very swiftly to stop them escalating. Try and deal with them at the most informal level. So we have had some improvements there. And now, so Q4, 5, we had no stage 1s or stage 2s. We were able to deal with those complaints really swiftly. We looked at the themes that came out of the complaints that we had, and lots were, there was a theme of lack of communication and lack of assessment, and some staff conduct issues, but the communication was definitely an issue. So we've really tried to improve on that, and that is showing in the complaints that we're getting, that we're dealing with them at a much lower level. And we, in terms of compliments, we have received compliments from our partner agencies, our police and health colleagues, that they feel that things are much improved. We've also adopted a CUMTAF escalation process called the CRISP as well, which is a very quick one-page document that just, if you're, say, the police and you stumble upon an issue and you're concerned, you can fill in this form, and then the team manager will deal with that within 5 working days. And it's a very swift way to deal with low-level problems and sort of deal with them before they become bigger. So we've adopted that, and that is working well to date. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the improvements that were made, because I think it's easy to sort of get lost in that sometimes when the task seems quite big. So obviously the Innovate Team's a huge improvement for us, but we also, from a good practice perspective, introduced pen pictures of all staff. So every social worker within the team has devised their own pen picture. So it's a one sheet of A4. And it's a photograph of themselves. It's an introduction to a child. It talks about their likes, their dislikes, and social workers will send that to the parent or the child prior to a visit, or take it with them if it's an emergency visit and not pre-planned. And it just assists in lowering anxieties for children. It explains what a social worker is, and it makes it a lot more friendly. So we've introduced that across the board, and that and we've had some really positive feedback from children and from parents about that. We've strengthened our processes in terms of how we gain consent. That was definitely lacking at the end of last year, and our process now is we ensure that we, where appropriate, we have consent, and that is documented and recorded. We've introduced an exploitation screening tool. I think we recognised at the start of the year that we weren't identifying exploitation as quickly as we should have been. So we've introduced this screening tool. It's been tested, and the feedback is positive, and we've got a group manager who's joined us from Haringey, and she sort of headed up their exploitation Haringey. So she's really experienced in this arena, and she's sort of headed that up. And we're pinpointing exploitation at the earliest opportunity now because of that. We've increased our business support as well, so that's really taken the pressure off some of our social work assistants and our social workers. So that's definitely helped. Even just the basics of answering the phones and signposting people. We've now got business support doing that, and previously it was social workers doing that, which really wasn't the most effective use of their time. We've also introduced on a weekly basis peer supervision. So again, this is a safe space for staff to come and talk about cases that they're worried about and gain advice from colleagues, and it really supports that shared learning. So and again, the feedback we've had from that is really positive, and the attendance is excellent. People really prioritise it. So yeah, I'm really pleased about that. We've also introduced a mentoring scheme. We recognise that we've got a wealth of experience within the team, and we've recruited some really experienced and knowledgeable agency social workers, and we've also got some quite newly qualified staff. So we really want to. That's why we implemented that, again, for that shared learning and that support. So that's working well to date. Also, I talked about the team management oversight on a daily basis. The team manager is sending out timescales to all social workers that are RAG rated. So that's keeping people much more on track. Our commitment to lowering the caseloads to the region of 25, that's having a positive impact on morale, and also how cases have progressed. We're not getting the issues of drift that we had before, because a caseload of 25 is manageable. We've also introduced across the board chronologies and genograms on every case, which is absolutely good practice, but it wasn't being done. So we've rolled that out across the board. So since February, we've seen a significant increase in performance month on month. So in summary, we've made significant improvements. Our priorities are fulfilling our action plan, that all our staff attend that mandatory back to basics training, that we continue to make the progress in terms of recruitment and retention of staff. We want to continue to offer our wellbeing initiatives I spoke about in our workshops, and really the improvements we've made in morale, continuing that and improving, and keeping caseloads at a safe level. So Lots of work has been done. We've still got certainly some way to go, but we know what's gone wrong, and we know what we need to do, and we're certainly on the right path to doing it. So I'll happily take any questions that anybody's got in relation to that.
Thank you very much, Rhianna. That was a really, really comprehensive overview, considering I am aware of the problems and I've been sitting here for a while with them. I think it's worth stating that even though we increased the capacity of our team by 25%, the actual demand on our service provision is double that of what we should be expecting normally. And I also think it's worth noting that I am more content that we are discharging our statutory duties in relation to timescales, because I think that's really important, especially considering the increased demand on the service. So can I offer this committee's thanks to all those staff for their dedication and commitment to the service, particularly when there's been such a spotlight on Bridgend Children's Social Services. I think that's really important to note. This has such an impact on people's well-being. But thank you very much, and I'll invite members for questions. And we have one for you. Councillor Williams, please.
Thanks very much. I was encouraged by that report. There's a number of concerns that have been raised in the past. I was previously chair of Social Services Scrutiny, and I'd had several discussions with Claire Marchant about concerns. So I'm encouraged with the improvements that you've shown that you've made, because I appreciate, as a school governor as well, the number of increased safeguarding referrals that are coming in, and they have gone through the roof, particularly since COVID. So it's been a concern for everyone that there's enough staff to deal with everything there. I've just got one question, if possible, please. And I'd raised this with Claire before, and she did agree that it does need to be looked into, but I wondered if there was an update. When you make, as a school, a telephone call into the service for advice, now those are not being documented, the advice that's given or the calls, and my concerns there are, firstly, obviously, you don't know what advice is being given. If you haven't got it documented, you can't back up that, and somebody then can't get that advice again. And then sometimes it's not the first referral of that type, it's not the second, but it's the third one that will get the flags raised. And if you're not documenting the first and the second, how will you notice that you've got 3 similar referrals for that same child coming through? So I wondered if there was an update on recording all of these contacts and the advice given. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Yes, you're absolutely right. That has been a concern, and it has been flagged. And sometimes you need the history to determine the best way forward, and it creates that picture. You can't always take every call in isolation, so you need to know what's come before, and also we need to evidence the work that we're doing. So yeah, we've got currently a working group that's considering all aspects of the service and its future design, and incorporated into that is the role of our social work assistants and the advice that they're giving and how they are recording that information. So we are live to it. Our time scale for this is sort of end of September. So I hope that next time I come, I'll be able to tell you exactly what the position there is. But at the moment, it is still part of our future design of the service, and how how it's going to look moving forward. But we are certainly aware of it, and it does. We need a system in place to ensure that all of that information is captured. I agree.
Does that help, Councillor Williams?
Yes, great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. It was very interesting, some of the pressures for social services staff in terms of their well-being in light of both COVID, and I think the very high-profile case with Logan Mwangi. I'd just like to put on record my gratitude to the staff for what must be an extremely challenging time. I just wondered, this might be a question you might not be able to answer. It might be more for the corporate director. But given these concerns about staff well-being in social care sector and some of the proposals you've put forward to improve their well-being, I'm wondering what measures have been put in place to support teaching staff, particularly in, say, for example, Tondi Primary, where they would have been severely impacted by the high-profile Logan Mwangi case. What measures have been put in place? When were they put in place? And has there been any follow-ups just to address just to evaluate the impact on those staff?
Well, I can answer that question for you, Councillor Thomas. They've had exactly the same resource and support, and it still continues to this day. So just to reassure you, it's exactly the same as the social work team get.
So you can confirm that there has been a follow-up to assess their well-being? Yep. Okay, yep. Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Oh, and it hasn't even finished. I wouldn't suggest that we're even at the point of saying we can sign that off and all's well and good, because I don't think that'll be the situation for a long time, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, that's very useful, thank you.
Okay. Councillor David.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask about the ongoing work reviewing the work of the multi-age safeguarding hub and the involvement of partners, because of course it is a multi-agency hub, and I know that previously the police, certainly at a very senior level, Chief Constable and Commissioner level, have been complimentary about the closeness of the partnership working at an operational level in the hub. And I wanted to seek reassurance that obviously those other partners are involved in the ongoing review of practice and procedures, because the key to that, the key to keeping children safe is that multi-agency approach, which is not universal across South Wales, but is certainly a feature of the Bridgend hub. And obviously myself and the deputy leader meet on a fortnightly basis, so we've asked lots of questions, as colleagues can imagine, but I'm not going to repeat them for the sake of there being an audience, because they've been asked and they've been answered. Only to suggest that obviously we receive a future report on this, because it is such an important area of work, and whilst we're making progress, of course, as members, we will want that reassurance in the future that progress continues to be made, and I'm sure it will be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. I am assuming that Laura Kinsey would like to answer you with her hand up.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So I suppose the first thing to say, Leader, is that yes, IPC and the Institute of Public Care are undertaking that piece of work with us and facilitating that work to establish a suitable operating model, really, that will make our safeguarding arrangements be as robust as they can be at our front door, and sustainable. That's the other important thing here as well, isn't it? So IPC are facilitating that piece of work, and there's an extensive methodology to that, and lots of workshops taking place. In the beginning, those were primarily for us within the local authority and within social care, and with colleagues from other directorates, for example, education and family support, etc. But we are now moving into the phase where we're having workshops with partner agencies as well. So what I can reassure you about is that we are not going to design and then implement an operating model in a part of our service that is part of a wider safeguarding hub without them being on board with that as well. So yes, they are involved in that. And just to reassure as well, in the interim, that we also have other mechanisms in place whilst we're undertaking that bigger piece of work as well. So we've got our joint operational group that meets regularly as well, which is a group of managers and senior managers within those agencies to monitor our performance at the front door and things happening in the MASH, so that we can reassure ourselves that practice is safe and that we're moving forward and not slipping backwards. And the other thing as well is that the Regional Safeguarding Board still has its executive steering group as well that meets every couple of weeks. That has various functions, but one of those is also to monitor performance as well in each local authority area's safeguarding services as well. So those mechanisms are in place now, and we are certainly involving partners in the design of our model moving forward.
Happy, leader? Yeah, thanks very much, Laura.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions to the presentation? Are we all happy to note Rhianna's presentation then, please?
I move we note
Yep,
the presentation, Chair.
Thanks very much. Did we have a seconder then?
Yep, I'll second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farr. Thank you very much, Rhianna. It's been enormously helpful today. I really do appreciate it.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So if I can move members on then to the right bit of the agenda then, that I should have not introduced the first time around, is the implementation of the Foster Carer Charter. Steve? No, Laura?
Hi. Hi everyone. So I'm going to introduce the item. So the purpose of this report is to update the Corporate Parenting Committee on the development of a foster carer charter for our fostering service within Bridgend, and seek committee approval to adopt and implement the same. So Steve Howells unfortunately isn't able to attend today's committee, so I'm going to hand over to Alex Fitzpatrick, who's one of the very experienced managers in that service, and she's going to present the report, and together we'll respond to any questions and observations at the end of her presentation of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura, and you are very welcome, Alex.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So we have developed, in consultation with our BCBC foster carers and in accordance with advice and guidance from the Fostering Network, a fostering charter for our BCBC in-house carers that we would like to put into place. The main aims of this are about improving and promoting the status of foster carers within the local authority. This comes from feedback from within our fostering cohort, but also nationally run fostering network surveys that have been undertaken that make it key that those who are foster carers and those in fostering services believe the experiences of our looked after children population can be immensely improved by having an increased status of foster carers. The aim is to ensure that we are working in partnership with our foster carers, recognise the valuable contributions they make, ensure effective communication across the teams, and ensure that our foster carers are suitably supported and upskilled. The Charter is intended to be a transparent agreement between foster carers and the service, making it clear what we will provide to our foster carers and how we will do it, and also what we can expect from our foster carers in turn. What we hope to achieve with this charter is to improve the experiences of children who are looked after, but we also aim to improve our retention and recruitment of foster carers by demonstrating their level of value, by having this as a whole service objective, and having a culture of inclusion for our foster carers and promoting their status. Sorry, would you like me to take anybody through the charter?
No, I don't think anybody needs to go through the charter. Does anybody have any questions for Alex or for Lindsay? But thank you very much. That was very brief, Alex. We're not used to it being so brief.
Oh, I do apologise.
No, you don't need to apologise, not at all. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you, Councillor Gebby. I'm very impressed with this. I like it a lot. I think foster carers, it's a problem. It's not just in foster care, but it's a problem across the voluntary sector, where you have paid people and then voluntary people, and paid people always think they know more than voluntary people, despite the fact how long sometimes people in the voluntary sector have been in operation. So I like the idea, excuse me, that their expertise and their knowledge are going to be of greater and equal value of professionals. I also like the provide for sport for children who foster. I think this is something that is forgotten about. I was a child who fostered many years ago with my parents, and you know, at the age of 8, you're asking lots of questions and like, well, who's this person, and you know, all this sort of thing, and you forget, and you know, you're going on family days out, and then there's this other child's here, and you're not really quite getting it. So they do get, there's a lot of questions which sometimes aren't always raised, so it's important that you provide that support to them as well. I mean, praise for parents is one thing, but praise to the children who foster as well is equally as important. So I'm delighted that BCBC are looking to adopt this, and I hope it works. I really do, and it's a working document. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Councillor Pratt. I wouldn't disagree with your comments, and for everybody to note, I was a previous foster carer. So I think it's delightful, and we are the first council in Wales to be producing a foster carer charter where we are going to value our foster carers much more than they have done previously, and I think that's will be a great success. So thank you very much, Alex. Has anybody else got any questions for Alex or Lindsay? Laura? No? Thank you very much for attending today, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Okay, shall we move on then, please, if we have no further questions to that report? Oh, I need someone to move and second it, please. Councillor David.
Yeah, I was just going to take delight in moving the recommendations, echo the comments of Councillor Pratt in terms of the value of the charter, and I'm sure in future meetings we'll want to consider how we've performed in terms of that charter, and I note in particular the positive feedback that we've received from foster carers about the charter, and I'm sure we'll make arrangements to ensure that all our foster carers know about the charter, and it very much is a feature then in the induction of new foster carers, because I think it is an important statement of our values and our aims, and the way that we want to build those positive relationships with our foster carers. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for moving that report, Leader. Can I have another Cabinet colleague to second, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farr. So moving on then, very quickly, proposed corporate parenting development. Laura, are you going to introduce Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce, and I'm going to actually reference the observation the leader has just made as well, if that's okay. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Steve, because Steve Berry is still feels like a fairly recent appointment, Bridgen. So welcome, Steve. And he's our corporate parenting and participation officer, and a post that we've been so excited about. So it's fantastic to have Steve here now in Bridgen, and he's already making a difference, and I'm sure the committee will witness that today. So Steve is going to talk through a report which sets out our proposals in Bridgen to further develop our corporate parenting arrangements in the local authority. And I think one of the things hopefully Steve will provide some assurance around really is how we want to make some of the arrangements more robust and have arrangements that, if you like, hold people to account. So the leader just asked about things like the charter. Well, we're signing up to these charters, etc. But how are we going to monitor their actual implementation? How are we going to monitor whether they're making a difference? And I think that is something that we are aware of in Bridgen that we perhaps need to improve, and I think I know Steve has got some ideas about that really, and so I think, Leader, that will be addressed in Steve's presentation in terms of his proposals about how we really take corporate parenting and our responsibilities forward in the future. So I'm going to hand over to Steve now.
Thanks very much, Laura, and you're very welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. If I may, I'd like to set the context where we are with corporate parenting here in Bridgend, but also where we are nationally within Wales. Currently, with regards to corporate parenting, we don't have an agreed definition for what corporate parenting is. We skip around it and talk about some ideas around it, but I think the general consensus is across professions and especially in local authorities is corporate parenting is around the councillors having responsibility. Well, corporate parenting is much wider than that. It's about staff members, it's about the community, and it's about the other partner agencies taking responsibility for our care experienced and our care leavers. But there's nothing in statute to say so. So we need to have an understanding of what we in Bridgend understand what we want in the future for these young people. We need an agreed list of responsibilities with accountability for all of those agencies, including ourselves. We need an agreed multi-agency commitment to corporate parenting so that we know that we are going to sustain what we say we want to do now. Without the understanding or vision of what we think of corporate parenting, we don't have an idea holistically of how well we are parenting and what the prospect is for our care experienced young people and our care leavers. So what we need to set about is having an agreed vision. We need an agreed set of responsibilities and an agreed set of accountability to our partner agencies and ourselves. We need to be able to measure the performance on this corporate parenting and measure how we're doing with our responsibilities. We need a joined up approach and a multi-agency commitment to corporate parenting. And within all of this, we need to hear the voice of our care experienced children and young people and our care leavers, who I wish from this point onwards that we call our children and young people, because they are ours, because we are responsible for them. And that we use the voice of their experiences to inform our practice, not to tell us what to do, because we do have to recognise their position, that they're children and young people going through the situation, but we really do need to listen to their views and help that inform our professional opinion of what's going on. So the paper proposes a set of a framework really around some of the points that I've raised. So first and foremost, to hold a consultation event, which we've agreed would be the 12th of September in the morning. And that consultation event would be an opportunity for all partner agencies, counsellors, leaders, frontline practitioners to come together and discuss what we see as the vision for Bridgend in the future with regards to corporate parenting. This morning would be an opportunity for us to lay down what we recognise the responsibilities are, what they look like and what they look like tangibly in the placement of that child or young person, so that we can really start to measure and understand how well we're doing with our corporate parenting. So many of you will have received already those invites for that particular day, and that will then inform how we move forward in the future. And I propose that I will be bringing back feedback from that event to the next Corporate Parenting Cabinet Committee on the 12th of October. We need to establish a multi-agency corporate parenting operational group. This group would bring together all other agencies, our partner agencies, to ensure that we have a collective approach to our corporate parenting. And within that group, we'll hold one another to account, and we will report back from that operational group up to this Cabinet Committee, so that we have a steer from yourselves as to where we go in the future. And within that group, we need to be able to establish a multi-agency corporate parenting data dashboard. So that's around being able to measure our responsibilities, our actions, excuse me, and specifics around how we are parenting. That multi-agency dashboard would be the core framework for us understanding how well we're doing. And then finally, the last proposal is to commission a specialist participation provider to facilitate a care experience forum, and secondly, a care leavers forum. And that would happen on a monthly basis with a specialist participation provider being able to ascertain the views of our children and young people and understand how well we're doing, seek proposals of how we should and could work with them in the future, and get children and young people's ideas and their experiences and their feedback. I must stress that this provider needs to be independent so that we're not marking our own homework, so that they are able to look from the outside and they are able to make proposals, recommendations and suggestions from an objective position. And more especially, it is proposed that the staff members would have a very strong understanding and experience of child protection and care system experience. So I would request that you consider the paper and support the recommendations put forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. Does anybody have any questions for Steve? I would like to add that I've asked Steve lots and lots of questions because we've had various meetings. Councillor David.
And again, I've asked this question previously, but I think it's important that other colleagues hear the answer. And there's obviously reference to this in the report, but corporate parenting is not just a role for the local authority and the members of the local authority of paramount importance, that is, but there's also a wider role for all public sector statutory bodies like the Health Board, police, schools, Welsh Government. And I know that you are planning to include partners in that day, but I wanted to share that and ask it if there's any news on that. We did only meet this week, but still, you might have had feedback from some of our partners, and to repeat for colleagues' benefit, the offer that myself and the deputy leader have made, that obviously we would contact partners if we hadn't had a response about the day, and likewise, and I'm pleased that we've got a good attendance today from members from different groups, and hopefully we'll have that reflected in the event as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Councillor David. Does anybody have any other questions for Steve? I'm quite excited about the fact that we're going to actually have a definition for what corporate parenting is. I think a corporate parent, we should know exactly what that means. I think quite often members are appointed and elected and we have no understanding of what it is. So I think that's really good value. Can I have a cabinet member to move and second the report, please?
Happy to move the report. The recommendations, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor David. Can I have another colleague, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Good. Do you have everything you need off us, Steve? Thank you very much for your contributions.
100%, thank you. I would just urge and request those that have been invited, please do your utmost to attend and participate as fully possible as you can, so that we really do truly have a joined up agreement on what that vision and definition is on the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. If I move on the agenda, on to the next item on the agenda is to consider any urgent items. I haven't been notified of any urgent items. So can I thank you all for your attendance and participation and engagement today as I close the meeting. Thank you very much.